Welcome into the basketball podcast of Mid-America. It is November 30th. I've got Ethan Westerman of Whole Hog Sports and Blake Sutton of the Hog Sports Network with me for the second basketball podcast of Mid-America this week because we promised if Arkansas beat Duke on Wednesday night in the ACC SEC Challenge, we would do another one. Arkansas beat Duke, so we're back. Big Piggy.
Big Woo.
You know how we do.
That's a credit to Jeremiah Davenport after the game.
He had the bar of the night, I think. Some post-game locker room footage posted to Arkansas's basketball Twitter account, and I'm pretty sure he said Big Piggy. I every time I listen to it, I hear that.
I don't know what else it could have been. I think it was Big Piggy, Big Woo. You know how we do. I think we got it. And here's the thing. I clearly didn't know how we do because I went on this podcast approximately 3 days ago. Was it 3 days ago? I'm losing track of time. Monday. And I said they were going to lose by double digits. So I didn't know how we do. Scottie, you did. Anybody who is listening to this, Scottie is, I've learned this in my time working with Scottie. He's phenomenal at picking games. I don't know if y'all see our college football picks each week, but Scottie has got a gift. You beat us we did yearly pick'ems, tracked it over every single college football week. And I think Scottie ended up by the last week beating us by I think second place was within 8 games of you or something.
I think the final record I had was 94-26 or something like that. I think I can't remember how many games we picked. There was 120 games. So maybe I think I got at least 90 right.
Yeah. All this to say, Scottie should have just, the moment I heard Scottie say on Monday that he thinks Arkansas is going to win, I should have absolutely wiped my prediction and said, hey, on second thought, you've convinced me. But yeah, I was very wrong. And wow, just what a game, man.
I'm not the pat myself on the back type of guy, but I think, dude, you cover Eric Musselman long enough, you just kind of get a feeling about certain games. And I mean, Duke was coming into town, and I wrote back in June that game was going to be a moment in time if Arkansas played well in the Bahamas. Arkansas didn't play well in the Bahamas, and it was still a freaking night that we'll remember for a really, really long time. And, I mentioned the other day that Arkansas's record under Eric with, 4+ days between games. They're now 28-5 in those games. And Arkansas's next 6 games come after at least 4 days off. So I think I said at the sports club on Wednesday, it was I think that this is kind of the way that the games are laid out. It's almost perfect for, the way or the state of the team coming back from the Bahamas. I think that's it's pretty nice. Obviously Eric was asked about having some, not playing again until Monday. He's like, why we're not playing on the weekend? I don't know. But, it's rest for a guy like Tremont Mark who didn't play against Duke. And there's some guys that played a lot of minutes, were counted on really heavily. Like Trevin Brazil played 38 minutes, which is phenomenal. You get some rest for some guys who today were probably pretty heavy-legged and played and scrapped and fought in a really physical game, I thought. So I think it's a pretty good stretch of games coming up for Arkansas.
Oh, yeah.
With all those kind of the you're not playing Monday and then Thursday and then kind of in that cycle.
Yeah. I think that after the Purdue exhibition, which, was an exhibition, so it's needed to take it not as a grain of salt because it did teach you some things, but it's kind of hard to get done playing a game like that and then go through the stretch they did of, those weren't bad teams, but you look at the schedule now, you're like, okay, Furman, you saw what they did in the NCAA tournament last year. Oklahoma is ranked right now. It's kind of I think that the schedule fell good for them that this Duke game happened before, not maybe another stretch of games against teams like Alcorn State, because I think we talked a little bit about it last night. We think maybe they got a false sense of security from that Purdue game and then kind of the opponents that they were playing afterwards, which an Eric Musselman team he's gonna always, I don't think he has a false sense of security, but sometimes the players, it's just kind of inevitable.
It's human nature, I feel like, for sure.
But you look at the schedule ahead, I'm like, okay, I think that the next two games should have their full attention. Just knowing what those teams are capable of.
Fellas, I think we're going to be talking about November 29th, 2023 for a long time. I mean, Arkansas football officially announced Bobby Petrino is going to be its offensive coordinator moving forward. 9 hours later, Arkansas beats Duke, party at the Palace. Like, it was the students from the top deck that were in the student section and the upper deck started flowing down to rush the court with like 4 or 5 minutes left in the game, I think. And Arkansas made it a little hairy at the end, but got Devo subbed in late in the game. He was able to, draw some fouls and get to the free throw line and kind of seal the thing. But before we get into breaking down, I guess, the 80-75 win, just y'all's thoughts on the scene, the atmosphere last night, and just kind of everything that went into it. I mean, it was a record crowd, 20,344 folks crammed into that place.
Yeah, it was a sight to see on TV. The whiteout, they pulled that off pretty successfully. Hearing national media talk about it a lot, especially, I think they said that this was Jay Bealis's first time to even go to Bud Walton Arena, and he's a Duke graduate. But I mean, his review was glowing of Bud Walton Arena. I think he said it's a bucket list arena for people now.
Mm-hmm.
After he went, and to see his alma mater get beat there, it's even kind of a bigger testament to the atmosphere too, that he kind of got over that and just had to kind of acknowledge what an incredible atmosphere it was.
It's kind of weird to me that, like, just because of what all was surrounding with Bobby Petrino and like all the excitement around that it's almost like it was cool that like students had camped out outside how they did, but it's almost like you forgot that was like, I don't know. It's almost like just the atmosphere and everything hit you all at once.
Oh, there was so much going on, man.
There was just so much going on that it's like, at least for me, I mean, I saw the photos of all the tents out, but it was kind of like, oh, that's cool. And then you get in the arena, you're like, oh, wait, this is like, it's here. This is, I don't know. I think with everything going on, all the buzz, it just hit you all at once. And whenever it was like 35 minutes before tip and it's already just a complete buzz in there, and I'm looking around trying to find like the puck, I'm like, sometimes before a game that you're expecting there to be a big crowd, you're looking around like in advance, you're like, oh, this looks like too many empty seats right now. Can this all fill? And then you looked at 35 minutes, I'm like, I'm barely seeing like empty seats. Like, there's no chance this isn't going to fill out. And my goodness, that was electric. I mean, you set the program record for home attendance, so that's like, I feel like all you really got to say. I mean, it
was on the 30-year anniversary of the first game in the building too.
Yeah, in Eric Musselman's 100th win, it kind of just, it's funny because of course you want to win in the Bahamas and get his 100th win there, but just the way that everything ended up playing out, I mean, couldn't have made for probably more of a just like, I guess you could have made for a more exciting night had Arkansas been ranked, but I mean, just like still having Eric's 100th win happen there, having it be the 30th year anniversary of the first game ever in the arena, it being Duke, who was your national championship win in 1994 and you did it on Nolan Richardson Court with him in attendance. I mean, it was kind of like, it was a moment in time. It's exactly what you said might happen, just a little bit different way about it.
Yeah, and I think the happiest person in the arena is probably Hunter Yurchak, because if you just go back a few days ago, the emotions surrounding the Arkansas athletic department were not good. You had, the going 1-2 in Atlantis. You had the blowout against Missouri. People just were really upset, really weren't happy. You see a lot of fans questioning Hunter Yurchak's performance and saying, yeah, he has all this success in other sports, but, football's the big one, and now basketball's struggling. But what a turnaround. I mean, you have the Arkansas Edge announcement, then the Petrino announcement, and then the next day, you set a record of attendance for Bud Walton and beat Duke. I mean, you couldn't have drawn up a better script for Hunter Yurchak in the past few days.
The vibes went from 0 to 100
About the
in just a
time
matter of like 4 or 5 days.
about the time we were recording this podcast last on Monday, it was like simultaneously with Pete Thamel dropping this Bobby Petrino news. So we were here recording the moment that I just feel like the vibes got flipped completely upside their head. I mean, it's been a complete like just the excitement, and you feel a buzz here again. It's like, I mean, last night was just so electric, and I mean, it was just crazy. I mean, you have dead balls. Like, there's a basketball game going on. It's not like a official timeout. It is just a dead ball, and they're about to
Yeah, Eric
inbound it.
Musselman gets the attention of one of the game officials because they're bringing the ball up and the shot clock is sitting at 11. He runs up to the official.
Yeah. It's just funny though. It's like but the craziest part about it all is it's like all this is happening and it's like a huge basketball game and you're just hearing Bobby chants. I'm like, we are in the middle of a game and the crowd is chanting Bobby. I mean,
At least a half dozen "We Want Bobby" chants last night. Like minimum
yeah,
half
and
dozen.
it's so funny. Like Hank Layton does such a good job getting photos for us. Just the photos that you got of Petrino sitting up there. He just looks so happy. It's like he's got to, I mean, be eating it up a little bit. You got to think, right?
Yeah, daddy's home.
Yeah.
That's what everybody in the building felt like. A couple of other things, like you mentioned the kind of the buzz that you felt before the game. I kind of started feeling that while I was waiting to be let into the media entrance. Darrell Walker walks by. He's in his full UALR jumpsuit. Like, he had that jumpsuit on, boy. And right behind him, Sam Presti, GM of the Oklahoma City Thunder, walking in, and Ronnie Brewer's running up and down stairs, like trying to make sure everybody who needs to get in and has like should get the VIP treatment is getting it, and then get seated on media row. And I kind of look across, just like maybe a section past the student section. Sam Presti's just sitting in the middle of one of the sections, just like a normal dude. And then I'm 99% sure that Nick Collison was sitting right next to him. I think he's a special assistant with the Oklahoma City Thunder. I was told before the game yesterday that there were at least 23 scouts from at least 21 teams credentialed for that game. And then there were other scouts and, team reps that bought tickets on the secondary market just to get in the building. Mike Haywood, who's Arkansas's team spokesman, he told us last night, we kind of went over and talked to him. It was like 1:30 in the morning, dude. We shouldn't have even been walking out on the court to go talk to him.
I had lost all sense of time.
He said that he literally ran out of credentials. Like, they ran out of credentials for everybody. He said, what he said, 90? About 90 credentials. It was just, I think I closed that column that I wrote in the summer. It was like, I'm sure there's going to be a bunch of stories to tell from Arkansas Duke on November 29th, and we're like 20 minutes into this. We haven't even talked about the freaking game yet.
Yeah.
I do want to say something about Presti. I'm a big Oklahoma City Thunder fan, and, Presti likes Arkansas players, obviously. You got Jalen Williams and Isaiah Joe both playing for the Thunder. The Thunder are really good right now. Probably not going to get a lottery pick, but they have the Clippers first-round pick, and the Clippers are really struggling. And who knows, maybe Presti was there to potentially think about maybe getting Trevin Brazile with that Clipper pick. Who knows?
Something to think about. Blake's back there connecting dots, son.
If you get 3 Arkansas Razorbacks on the Oklahoma City Thunder, I mean, if people haven't already done it, just adopt that as your team, man. Like, if you don't have one.
I mean, Jalen Williams, incredibly likable. Unless you're Tennessee.
Or you're
Rick
going
Barnes.
up for a layup.
Yeah, unless you're Anthony Edwards now, probably. Isaiah Joe, covered him in high school. Phenomenal kid, phenomenal family. Jay Will's family, same way. They get, this is crazy thinking, but they get Trevin Brazile too. I mean, I might have to switch my allegiance from Phoenix to OKC, or I might just have to adopt them as a second team.
Yeah, that's going to be like Fayetteville West. You could potentially. There's lots of times where Jalen Williams and Isaiah Joe are both on the floor together. There's potentially you could have 3 Razorbacks on the floor for the Thunder at one time. That's just crazy to think about.
Of course, this is just full, like, we're getting so far ahead of ourselves, speculation. But I did look over to Scottie last night. It was after the game. And I said, I feel like Trevin Brazile might have earned himself some money for sure tonight. And it's funny because we had just got done talking Monday about, like, what's in for him. And like we talked about, like the perimeter game. And I mean, I just think right now that is his strength. And he was so good from 3 last night. I mean, that was huge in the whole outcome of the game. Just the way that it was, you needed that guy in a game like that who sets the tone of like, the moment isn't too big for us. And I mean, he comes out in the first couple minutes and hits some big shots. I think that gets the whole team, whenever you're seeing like one of your leaders like that is hitting big shots right off the bat, it gets the whole team settled in. Like, all right, let's go.
I thought he was the perfect amount of edgy last night, which is where I think that perfect medium of I'm not here to screw around tonight. Like that's where his mentality needs to be. Hank got some banger pictures of TB last night. Just, when he had the volleyball spike block that led to the Layden blocker layup on the other end, that was a huge play. And then, like you mentioned, the perimeter shooting, hit a career high 4 threes on 7 attempts. It wasn't like he made 4 threes, but he needed to take a dozen to get there. I mean, he was really good. And, we talked to the other night, like last night, he made more non-offensive rebound 2-point field goals last night than he did in 3 games in the Bahamas. And that jumper that he hit, I think, from the free throw line, the and one jumper, I wasn't crazy about the shot, but what are you going to do, man? I mean, I thought that was a pro move. We can get into the game, I imagine, soon. One thing that I thought was really interesting or kind of really funny from the press conference last night, Bob brought up to Eric that last night was his 100th win, and Eric goes, 100th win where? He's like, I've got 100 at Nevada, got 100 in the G League. And then he joked, he said, now that I think about it, Hunter Yurchek hasn't given me my a commemorative basketball for my 100th win. The AD at Nevada did that. And then he goes, I guess Hunter Yurchek's been occupied of late. And it just it brought the room, like the press conference room was kind of in stitches at that point. Just kind of a perfect way to describe the whole week. Like Eric gets this milestone on a huge night for the program. Had a lot of people feeling like it was the 90s again. I just thought it felt like Eric Musselman's got Arkansas back on the map era.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like Arkansas's now had a couple of these games like this, 2 since February 2022. So what is that? I can't do math real well, but that's 21 months. They've had 2 games like that in 21 months. That's what Eric Musselman's done for the program. Last thing, where does last night lie for you in terms of loudest environments in Bud? Because I think 3 that we've personally experienced. Was it? I know you had a front row seat literally for the Calipari ejection, right?
Yep.
You were. I don't know, Ethan, former manager with Mike Anderson and year 1 with Eric, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And so you were on mop duty for the Kentucky game, right?
Managers rotate duty. Like somebody, I don't even know if this is still how they do it. At least whenever I did, like somebody's usually on mop duty, somebody's doing towels, somebody's doing like water bottles. Somebody, at least for part of the time I did, it was like live statting the game a little bit, like on a computer. Or like clipping it for later. Anyways, there's a lot of roles. That one game, the Calipari game, I was on mop duty. And so I was on the basket facing like the Kentucky bench. So that was electric for me because but last night takes the cake in my opinion for the loudest. Like that was so rowdy last night. It's hard for me to compare it to the Auburn game. It really is. For some reason, it feels like so similar because it was a whiteout and like I just think it was more electric last night, just in general because of I really do think Bobby Petrino gave this thing
played a definite factor.
Yeah, Bobby Petrino literally gave it an edge over the Auburn game because it was just such a bizarre. You're sitting there, you're like, is this actually happening right now? Do we really have Bobby Petrino in the stands and we have Bobby Chance while Arkansas is playing the Duke Blue Devils in Fayetteville with Nolan Richardson here and they're playing on his court? It was just a really weird, like so many eras of Arkansas happening at once, but like at the same, it was like all these eras coming together but it was like, this is in the now though, if that makes sense. It was like, it almost felt like an introduction to like, you're in the Musselman era.
Oh, for sure. I think there's a difference in loud and rowdy. And I tweeted, I think, when maybe Arkansas went up 14 after Caleb Battle banged another three and shimmied to the bench. I said I thought the arena was rowdy like Arkansas Auburn a couple of seasons ago, and then some. I think it was rowdier last night than it was for that Auburn game. I think the Auburn game is still the loudest I've heard it. I think it was, in terms of loud, I'd go Auburn game last night, Cal ejection, but the Cal ejection and last night were very close. Rowdy, I would go probably last night, Auburn, and then Cal. Like, it was just.
Yeah, I
think the fact that it's Calipari that got ejected makes us. It was loud, no doubt about it, no question about it. But I think it's because of the Calipari name, Kentucky, that I think
that was
kind of romanticize it a little bit.
For comparing those three games, I think that game and that moment was the loudest moment of any of those three games, just because it was like, I mean, such a concrete, like, this is crazy, the Calipari is getting ejected. Like, I think that was loudest moment, loudest game. I think might have been. This is so weird to compare these, but I think Auburn might have been like loudest game. But then last night was just so electric. Like, it was like last night people were ready to celebrate before it even started, just because everything else going on. It's like you didn't have to have the tip off before people were just already in a good mood. The Auburn game was kind of like, I don't know, I feel like more like people kind of on the edge of their seats, like we're playing the number one team. It was like kind of I think the Auburn game was more maybe like surprising, like we just did that. Last night was just kind of like we're ready to be excited about life again.
Yeah. I think the loudest I've heard that building was the Auburn game. Walker Kessler's at the free throw line, and the first free throw that he shoots like hits the top right corner of the square. It was that loud, dude. And I'm not joking. I think the crowd made him miss free throws, and that's the loudest I've ever heard the building. And then I think last night in Cal are, 2A, 2B. Man, all of that has happened since Eric Musselman got here. Isn't that crazy to think about? And I don't see it going anywhere. I mean, the man watched 14 hours of tape on a travel day coming home, watched more tape than he ever has in his life, got things figured out. Game plan discipline was great. Last night made for one of the more memorable nights that Arkansas basketball has ever had in Bud Walton Arena. We're going to take a break, and then we're going to talk about the basketball game. How about that? We'll get into Trevin Brazil, Caleb Battle, L. Ellis, and then Chandler Lawson, Ultimate Glue Guy. We'll talk about them on the other side of the break.
Get the latest breaking news on all Arkansas Razorback sports at WholeHogSports.com. Our award-winning reporters and photographers go beyond game recaps to bring our subscribers the most trusted Razorbacks news anywhere. With expert analysis, the latest in recruiting, plus unique and compelling stories of your favorite teams. Subscribe today at WholeHogSports.com.
Welcome back into the Basketball Podcast of Mid-America. I promise this time we're going to talk ball because the game was great. The atmosphere was phenomenal. The game itself was great too. Arkansas played for probably 36 plus minutes. It's best, most complete game of the year. Especially given the competition. What stood out to me was, I mentioned it right before we hit the break, just the game plan discipline was phenomenal. And I think that's something that Eric kind of talked about in the lead up to this game. There was so little time to get a game plan together and hammer it home with guys. Like, you're just having to do it in walkthroughs. Like, you can't really do a bunch of stuff on the floor with these quick turnarounds, but 2 days on the floor, Monday and Tuesday, after a couple of days off, which I don't think he said he's ever had a team that took like 2 full days off. And one of them obviously was travel. You probably jet lagged a little bit coming home, get Sunday off. Monday, you're back on the floor at 2 o'clock. Monday, you're on the floor at 2 o'clock. Tuesday, practicing again. They were so dialed in to whatever the game plan was. I think that's what stuck out to me most. And then, Kyle Filipowski, All-America, forward for Duke, great player, sophomore, going to get drafted for sure. Okay. He could be the guy that Sam Presti takes if he passes on TB potentially. He goes for 26 and 10, and seriously, Arkansas limited him because their game plan for him was so good. I looked at the stat broadcast last night. He finished with 26. 17 of his 26 points came in the last 9 minutes. What did you think of the job that Arkansas did on Filipowski? And obviously the 2 early fouls helped Arkansas out a bit, but still when he was on the floor, Chandler Lawson was just phenomenal on him.
Yeah, you could tell that getting Filipowski in foul trouble was part of the game plan, because I remember when he got his second foul early in the first half, Trevin Brazile, he looked like he had smoke coming out of his ears and flames coming out of his. He was like so pumped and looking at the sideline, because it was like, we did it. Like we accomplished part of the game plan. We got Filipowski in foul trouble early. So you could definitely tell that was part of it.
I think there's a definite, hey, let's put him in ball screens early and see if we can't have El Ellis get really low to the floor and have El like drive off one of his hips, that kind of thing. I think that second foul, at least the first foul, I believe, if I'm not mistaken. I haven't rewatched the full game yet. I just watched the second half this morning. What did you think? I mean, they knew Filipowski wanted to spin baseline almost every post touch. They seemed like they were ready for it.
And I think that honestly, it was really just big that Arkansas led by 1 at the half. John Shire actually said this after the game. He said, "We're thinking down 1 at half. We feel pretty good. Now we get Filipowski back, but it wasn't the collective toughness that you have to have on the road with some of those stops." He said that the beginning of the second half was key. That's what impressed me, is like you accomplished getting him in foul trouble early. You're still, you go to the halftime, you're pleased with the 1-point lead, but you're kind of thinking, okay, they're getting this guy. He's not really going to be in his head about fouls anymore. And then you just take it to him in the first few minutes of the second half. I think that's what impressed me. You talk about short turnarounds with Eric Musselman teams. Talk about the short turnaround of a halftime where he dissects what needs to change, and then they turn it around like they did last night. That's what impressed me. It seemed to me like he was, until he started getting in a groove late in the game, like you said, scoring wise. But I think that the early foul trouble, like even when he first got back, maybe just like not being in the game. Like I think a guy like him just isn't used to not being as involved in the game at that point. Like used to just being like kind of the dude. So yeah, the early foul trouble was huge. I made a note of it as soon as it happened last time. I'm always just kind of sitting there writing down things that I see or standing out, and I'm like, Filipowski, 2 fouls 5 minutes into the game. That's game changing right there
For sure.
Yeah.
Hog Stats put out this tweet last night, or probably early this morning, if we're being honest. Arkansas blocked 5 of Filipowski's shots, tied for the most blocked shots on a single player since that stat started being tracked in 2019-20. Arkansas also blocked, I believe it was a kid from Gardner-Webb, Caleb Robinson, also blocked his shot 5 times. This is a good shot blocking team. Arkansas had 10 last night. It was the second time this season they've had double-digit blocks. And Arkansas right now is 8th nationally in block percentage at 16.9%. So that block percentage, it's not like I don't believe it factors in 3-point shots blocked, which Trevin Brazile's blocked, I think 2 or 3 of those this year. So Arkansas has blocked 16.9% of opponents' 2-point field goal attempts this year, 8th in the country. That's phenomenal. Go ahead.
Didn't Lawson have like 6 blocks?
Had 6, yeah.
Yeah, I remember a few games ago they showed a graphic about his wingspan. It has like a 7'4" wingspan or something.
7'7", dude.
Okay, I can't believe I was underselling. I thought I might be overselling it at 7'4", but they compared it to a few guys in the NBA, and it was like it was longer than Giannis. It was longer than Embiid. It's insane how long his arms are.
He's like, I looked at this website. I think it's called Crafted NBA in the preseason because I did a column for HI on Chandler Lawson. And his wingspan is 7'7". If he was in the NBA right now, I think he'd have the 5th longest wingspan. And it's like the same as Bol, who plays for my Phoenix Suns, but he doesn't actually play a whole lot.
It's just funny because like with a guy like him, it's like so I mean, a team can go into a game knowing this. Like, surely that's on like every scouting report. This dude is long. He can block shots, but it's still deceptive. Like for some reason, it's still always deceptive to me of like how long he actually is. Because I mean, it doesn't just like strike you immediately of like, oh, this guy's like just gonna be such a force inside defensively, and then he is. I don't know. I think that he's completely like you said, the glue guy. Like you take him out of the picture in some of these games. I mean, I don't think that Stanford game. I mean,
He was terrific. in
yeah,
that
I
Stanford
don't
game.
think they win that Stanford game without him. I don't even think they get close to winning. And by that, I say I think like I think Stanford pulls away without Chandler Lawson in that game. He's that glue guy that you need. He's not going to jump right out at you of like, oh, this guy like is like whenever you think of this Arkansas team, you're like, oh, Trevor Brazile, Caleb Battle, Devo Davis. Just that's like Chandler Lawson's that dude who he's just out there doing what he's got to do to help the team win, man.
I looked up on Sports Reference. I love doing this, the player game finder. I did a search, so it only goes back to 2010, 2011 season until now. I looked up the last time an Arkansas player had at least 7 points, 8 rebounds, and 6 blocks. It was actually last season. Mikal Mitchell did it, but the guy who did it before Mikal was Daniel Gafford. Like he's kind of put him like Chandler's probably he doesn't have the points obviously that a Gafford was putting up, but since 2010, 2011, the guys to have at least that stat line in a game: Delvon Johnson, blast from the past right there, Bobby Portis, Moses Kingsley, Daniel Gafford, Mikal Mitchell. Chandler Lawson's putting himself into some pretty good company right there, and I'm totally with L. Ellis and Trevin Brazile. I think he's one of the top glue guys around because at this point, he's faced a couple of All-Americans this year and has more than held his own. And you could say that he won those matchups with Zach Edey of all people, and then Filipowski. Chandler Lawson's he's been what a gem. I think I wrote a late June gem.
Yeah.
From the transfer portal. He's just been phenomenal.
It's just so weird. Like you're talking about, like it's these like studs that he's doing it. It's like not that you're like this guy who's a top tier SEC like big or something. It's like like national like stud bigs. It's like almost like, oh, what happens if they go against a Hunter Dickinson? I'm like, oh, I'd take Chandler Lawson. It's like at this point you just kind of trust him.
Yeah,
and you're like,
you think he can more than hold his own.
Yeah.
A couple other things of note that I wanted to get to. 17 assists on 26 made shots. Exactly what Eric Musselman was looking for. I think sometimes we can get a little bit too caught up, though, in like the assist numbers. Because I think you can have good ball movement and still a lack of assists because assists are twofold, right? It's the ball handler finding a teammate for a shot, and then the second part of it is like the teammate just got to make the shot. So I could set up Ethan in the corner wide open. He could shoot it off the side of the backboard. I set up a good shot,
but
and it won't go down.
Yeah.
And so you don't get an assist on it, even though it was a good shot and you're moving the ball.
And you track potential assists a lot of times, right? Yeah. I mean, first of all, I just got to say, if you kicked it to me in the corner, that's a possibility. But if you hit me on the wing, I'm not clanking it off the back of it. Just like let's.
I would hope not. That would be a bad miss.
Let's just. I mean, maybe even then, I think we probably need to reverse roles. I'm the passer in this situation. Anyways, all that to say, I'm right there with you. I think that it's so funny because you can have a guy like L. Ellis who you'll see at the end of the game. He had 6 assists yesterday. I mean, I haven't tracked it yet. You might have or might not have.
I've got it on a notebook.
It was a long night, guys.
I'm sure I missed a couple.
But L. Ellis, it's crazy because you have a dude like him who can get 6 assists in a game, and then you could track like potential assists of like, oh, a guy just didn't make a shot, and all of a sudden a guy like him could like. There's assists still even out there. I think assists are a really tricky stat, honestly,
Agreed.
because it's just you have to put value. If a guy is a high assist guy, you have to note it. Because, I mean, clearly he's making good passes. But at the same time, I think there can be really good passers who their assist totals aren't that high. I mean, L. Ellis at Louisville last year, I'm sure. There were
But why
some.
do you think his assists weren't high? Because his teammates couldn't make shots.
Yeah, exactly. I'm saying, I'm like, there's
I
guys
mean,
like
he
him.
averaged over 4 a game, but if he had teammates that were, threats, like big time threats, he could have. I mean, that number could have been 7 or 8.
But 17-10, Arkansas in assists over Duke. And Caleb Battle had 5 as well. Two stats that jumped out to me were I looked at assists. I was like, okay, they clearly were like passing the ball around great. There were a couple possessions. I think there's one in the first half that ended with a 3-pointer, I want to say, by either Battle or TB, which that's probably a cop-out saying one of the two. They hit combined 7
they hit
threes.
7
But
between 'em.
but there was one possession that I just remember was such good ball movement, and like it just kind of brought the roof down that they like had that possession and scored. I think it was a corner 3 by one of the two. But that stood out to me, how well the ball was moving. And then defensive rebound. I know Arkansas gave up 11 offensive boards, but you still overall in the game out rebounded these guys by 6 and had 35 defensive boards. So yeah, I just thought that a couple areas that I think haven't been that great, especially in the Bahamas. It seemed like at least for one night against a really good team was pretty good.
The ball movement was also really good on a possession against zone, where I think all 5 guys ended up touching it. Devo rose up for a jumper, found Chandler Lawson, and then he slipped by the last defender at the rim for a layup. That was really good. Trying to think if there was anything like any other possessions that really stood out. It was, the 3 that Caleb Battle hit to put Arkansas up 14. It's Ellis drive, kick to the corner to maybe Trevin Brazil, makes the extra pass, and before the pass is even made, Eric Musselman at the time when the ball was in the corner was sitting on the bench. When the pass is starting to be made, he jumps up and he's pointing at Caleb Battle. The ball finds KB, buries it, shimmies for the second time in a few minutes.
I
So that
love
was
seeing
good
him have
ball
those
movement.
moments because it's fun to see it come to fruition as far as like we just said, like this dude is your swag guy, that he's just, and he's like TB, like I mentioned, who came out and just made some big shots. It was like he was ready for that moment. He was like, sign me the heck up. I am playing in front of a huge crowd. I want the ball in my hands. I want to take shots. It was cool to see how into it he was. I mean, he makes some shots, and you talked about the shimmies. It was just like he was in his own little world that he was enjoying.
I mean, I wrote a sidebar on him last night. I wrote that he was in his element.
Yeah.
I mean, that's another line that I used was like, that's undoubtedly Wednesday night was undoubtedly the kind of night that he probably envisioned when, he committed to Eric Musselman in Arkansas. Sticking with Caleb Battle, 5 boards, I think were 1 shy of matching a season high. The 5 assists, which I mentioned. So I was tracking potential assists live last night. In the first half, Caleb had 6 points and 4 assists. Those 4 assists had led to 11 more points. So Arkansas is up 33-32 at halftime, and Caleb Battles accounted for 17 of Arkansas's points. He was really good. Like, you can say what you want about his shot selection. I'm not going to disagree with you probably. Like, at times it's like Eric said last night, it's a little bit JD Note-ish.
Mm-hmm.
And like, he puts up a shot and you're like, oh no, what are you doing? And it goes in and you're like, oh, good, really good shot. The first 3 that he hit, that off the dribble 3 that put him up 8 was, I mean, that was him.
Yeah.
That's him kind of getting back to his roots, I feel like, on the playgrounds and in Jersey, and then him just shimmying and then running back down court, tongue out, just vibing is just, that's his, I love that swagger about him.
Another dude who had swagger that was so huge to the game. Like, I mean, it's kind of, I feel like it was big at the time, and then you kind of forgot about it by games. I mean, Jeremiah Davenport hitting 2 threes before the end of the first half was
Huge.
so big. I mean, I felt like Duke had finally gotten in a little bit of a rhythm, and Arkansas needed a counter, and dude knocks down 2 big shots. So there were several guys just playing with that swagger. I mean, this team has some guys I think that will love the big moment.
For sure. KB's one of them. He finished with 21 points for the 4th time this season. The 5 assists created 14 points. So he counted for 35 points last night. He was really good. I wrote that he was electric. I thought he was, especially, those big momentum shots that he hit. It was the first 3 to put them up 8. It was the driving score in semi-transition that put them up 10 for the first time. And then he hits the 3 seconds after, like, Eric points at him to, like, get this man the freaking basketball and let him knock down one of those shots. And then when we went and talked to Kaywood after the game, kind of went and stood in that spot where I'm going to say it was a approximate location of both shimmies. I'm just a big fan of that. And if you want pictures of those exact moments,
it got Hank Layton.
Hank Layton got him.
Yeah, it got Hank Layton to last night. Those moments did.
For sure. And I got a text from my wife during the game. They came back. ESPN came back from a commercial break, and Chris Budden got straight into the Caliph Battle story about his grandma locking him in the gym when he was little. Go find Hogs Illustrated with Caliph Battle cover story.
Spoiler alert: Scottie had it first.
Yeah.
One guy we haven't talked about, and I think it was just one of those nights where, and I think the crowd had a big part in this, just like everybody was having a good game, and some guys were doing things that you don't normally see. One guy that stood out to me was Mekhi Mitchell. There was a sequence in the second half where he went up against Filipowski, and I haven't really seen Mekhi Mitchell move his body this way. It was a real acrobatic move. He went under the basket and then kind of turned all the way around and laid it off the glass, and it went in. I'm like I don't remember seeing him move like that before. And then I think it was just a couple minutes later, he's in the paint. He fakes a pass. It was just a little fake. It cleared everybody out when he made that little fake, and then he's by himself in the paint and just shoots that little jumper, and it goes in. And I'm like, man, if Mekhi Mitchell is making shots like this, it's just Arkansas's night, you know?
That is exactly what I said to Tom Murphy last night. I was like, luck is like good fortune is on your side. Mekhi Mitchell's out here banging jump shots.
How crazy is it that dude played 10 minutes and had 4 foul in those minutes, but Arkansas was plus 12. Like, I'm like, how does that math? That
It
4
does,
fouls,
it doesn't.
yet the team is plus 12. And Mekhi Mitchell, though, I mean, huge game.
He was really good. One more thing on Caliph Battle. I like him. I like him as a player a lot, if y'all can't tell. Courtesy of Hog Stats, first Arkansas player with 20-plus points and 5 assists off the bench against an AP top 10 team since Gennaro Pargo in 2002. I think Caliph was born at that point, but he's very much still in diapers.
Grandma is at that point just holding him.
For sure.
She locked him in the crib with the little Nerf basketball.
What a woman.
Yeah.
L. Ellis. I guess we can start to wrap it up with L. Ellis. He admitted after the game Wednesday that he was in his head in the Bahamas, and I can tell you first and foremost, 100%. I mean, he played, I think, a grand total of 36 minutes, didn't have an assist, turned the ball over too much, went 0 of 10 from the floor. And then last night, he misses his first 4 shots. So you have to go back to the UNC Greensboro game, the last shot that he took in that game, to find a time when L. Ellis saw a ball go through a net, like from the field. And he missed 14 straight shots. And then to start the second half, I think he got 3 buckets in like no time. And it almost felt like he got his bag back. And I think he had an assist early in that second half. And you could see his confidence and that swagger coming back.
Well, props to L for playing through that and not getting too discouraged. Because, yeah, like you said, I think it was super early in the game. And I'm thinking, no Tremont Mark. Arkansas needs L. Ellis to score some points. Belis kept talking about all the bagels that he had. He kept using that word. I've always used goose egg, but Belis was stuck on bagel. I think he said it like 5 or 6 times in the game. But he comes out. That first shot that he missed was like really. It was a really pretty drive, and he just bangs it off the backboard so hard. And I'm like, oh no, he's still stuck. He's like you said, he hasn't seen the ball go through the net in a long time. But props to him for sticking with the game plan and not getting too discouraged and just continuing to play. And it finally clicked for him.
I thought it was encouraging to see him have that type of game and still have more than just a role for Layden blocker, that can coexist, like keeping
Yeah.
Layden blocking, because he was big too. I mean, everybody who played for the Razorbacks yesterday, I feel like contributed in some way. I mean, it's funny whenever Devo Davis is on, you're like, oh, he played, like it was so quiet, but it's like, even I don't know, it's just like up and down the lineup, it's just like everybody contributed, and it was I mean, I think encouraging for any fan out there to see just the number of bodies who saw the floor against Duke and had good things happen. And granted, Devo left the game early; he was bloodied in the head a little bit on the fall. I mean, that messes you up a little bit. It felt like everybody contributed.
Even Jalen Graham and Bay Fall. I mean, Jalen Graham, 2 fouls in almost no time, but he had a steal. Bay Fall got scored on his first defensive possession, goes back down the floor, gets an offensive rebound. I mean, I think you're right. Everybody pitched in some way. Going back to L for a minute, the block that he had last night was like when I play basketball in the living room with my 4-year-old on the Fisher-Price goal, and I'm just got the arm cocked back like this, just waiting on him to let go of it so I don't hurt his hand. Just make sure it gets out of his hand first, and he knocked it off somebody's head, and it got Arkansas regained possession. It was the craziest thing. One more thing. I think you saw, or we found out, like the perfect example of the value that a Keith Smart brings to Arkansas's coaching staff. Like, obviously he has a wealth of basketball knowledge. Like, he knows more about ball than any of us will ever know. L is in his head coming back from Atlantis. Before the Duke game, in the days leading up to it, Keith Smart clips a bunch of plays from L playing really well against Duke last season. And he just told him, go play your game, quit thinking too much, be instinctive. And then L finished with 9.6 assists, 1 block, and no turnovers. I mean,
how's that for giving confidence to somebody, man?
That is a GOAT coaching move right there. And that, I think, in a nutshell, is kind of the value of a Keith Smart on your staff. Y'all got anything else? Anybody that we missed on?
I got a quick question for you. What's your block percentage against your kids? Is it 100%?
Yes. It is 100%.
Let me guess, you kick it to them to the corner, and they also hit it off because everybody you pass it to just clanks it off the side of the backboard.
Oh, that is funny. Yeah, I missed out on a perfect chance in Atlantis. So there's gift shops all around the place, and I got the hat that I wore on the podcast Monday. Got it from there. Got my wife a hat, and I'm so mad at myself. They had these little basketballs like that you would play with on one of those Fisher-Price goals. It was Battle for Atlantis 2023 specific with all the team logos and stuff on it, and I didn't get my boys one. So that was about the only L I took in Atlantis, I think.
You fumbled the bag there.
Big time.
You got to insert the womp 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 music in there.
But I also spent money on 2 hats, and so I dropped another bag there in the gift store. But all in all, really fun trip. Really good response from Arkansas against Duke. I think we've probably talked this game through enough.
Hey, we said if they get a win, we'll be back in here. And once again, I apologize for being our one voice of negativity and predicted a double-digit loss. Prove me wrong. Without Tremont Mark, too. I
Well,
fairly
that may be the most impressive thing of the night, right? That you did all this without your leading scorer. I mean, it's not just your leading scorer; it's a guy that gets you 18 and a half a night.
And I mean, John Shire, let me pull it up real quick. He, right off the bat, it was like in his first few lines what he said. We have a lot of respect for their talent, coaching, and what they do. Even with Mark being out, we knew it would be an incredibly difficult game.
He also had a bar last night where he was like, Bud Walton Arena is just a different kind of thing. And then he said Arkansas played like a team that needed each other.
Mm-hmm.
My gosh, dude. Like, if you're Eric Musselman, that's got to make you happier almost than the win itself, that a coach is saying that about your guys, that he can just see that togetherness that your team had, in a big time environment. I feel like they definitely played that way. I came away really impressed with with John Shire. I guess before we get out of here, you were in Shire's press conference. What were your takeaways from him?
Man, that's a guy that you just like. You hate that you see Duke across his chest. I feel like as any like, I mean, they're kind of the villain of college basketball. They have been. He's such a nice guy, though.
He
man.
makes them a little bit less hateable.
He's like, I mean, he's your. Actually, this is now. People wouldn't agree anymore because of kind of how he changed over his Kentucky career. But he's first year Oscar Tshiebwe, who you're like, man, why you got to be this way and then play for Kentucky? I know that things changed there, but
yeah.
But he's the same way as far as I was just like, man, you're really impressive. He was so like, I just always have respect for a coach who immediately first thing to do is credit the other team in a very like genuine way. It was so genuine that he thought that like Arkansas played a really good game. He said that he like that's why you play college basketball is for like games like that and environments like that. He said it's why you go to Duke. I mean, I just thought that he was really impressive, and clearly he was upset that he didn't think his team played well. No coach of the 7th ranked team is going to be just all, everything Skittles and rainbows after a loss to an unranked team. But he, I think, understood this is an Arkansas team that, and it was in an environment that just a little bit different than maybe an unranked or how many ever votes they were receiving. Like, yeah, I think he knew this is a better team than that. So I think he stayed very lived in reality world a little bit better than some other coaches may have.
So one thing we haven't talked about, the inaugural SEC ACC challenge finished in a tie. It was seven wins for the SEC, 7 wins for the ACC.
They got to run it back.
Yeah, I was going to say, man, if you're part of the committee or whatever, whoever picks these games, you got to think rematch next year.
Well, they got 15 ACC teams, 14 SEC. So maybe you just pick who's the better between Texas, OU right now.
I don't know. Oklahoma just popped into the top 25 recently.
Just pick whatever ACC team didn't play, and then get them to play OU or Texas, and then that can be the decider.
I just think you gotta run it back too. I think Arkansas is probably going to play Duke at Cameron Indoor next year.
I don't think anybody would be interested in that, Blake. I mean,
not at all.
That would be pretty fun.
Well, those Duke fans, they want another crack at Arkansas for sure. Well, Arkansas also went ahead in the all-time series 3-2. I saw, so
yeah, maybe
Duke will have a chance next year.
I know they haven't. I've seen or I've covered the last 2 Arkansas Duke games, but it's kind of wild that was Arkansas's first win over Duke since the '94 title game. That sounds.
Yeah, it was everything
crazy.
About the game was just poetic. It felt like 30-year anniversary. We've said this. It was just like all things culminated in a really memorable night.
A moment in time, I think. Yep. I think that pretty much sums it up.
And we came back for the pod, like we said. We keep our word around here.
We did, for sure. Appreciate you guys tuning in for our second basketball podcast of Mid-America of the week. Happy that I could throw this bad boy on for this episode. Tried to do it on Monday. Could not find the shirt anywhere. Couldn't find it, but my wife did. She's a saint. She's a saint anyway. She didn't have to be a saint before she found the shirt to be a saint. But thank you guys for joining us. We will be back next week after Arkansas plays Furman, before Arkansas goes to Tulsa to play Oklahoma, who is, like I just mentioned, freshly in the AP Top 25. For Ethan Westerman and Blake Sutton, I'm Scottie Bordelon. Big Piggy.
Big Woo.
You know how we do.